Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Three Films and a Podcast. My name is Ben Lawhorn. With me, as always, is Tyler Beck and Matthew Weiler. For those of you new to the show, welcome to the Movie Club. For those of you returning, welcome back to the Movie Club. We are stoked for everybody that is coming along this journey with us. You can find us anywhere online at Three Films Pod, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, like once every quarter. I think we post on there. So if you really want to follow us on there, you can. Our website, threefilmspod.com. We have Patreon. We have all kinds of stuff. And we'll talk about Patreon in just a second, actually. But first, I want to get into our guest here, returning for the third time on his way to the Five Timers jacket. We're going to get somebody, tailored up for sure. Christian is joining us from the Movie Pit podcast. Christian, thank you so much for coming on. You previously joined us for our John Carter episode with Taylor Riggins, right? That's what I think that's what it was. And our Christmas movie draft. So yeah, thanks for coming back. Let the people know about your pod and where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I always say that you guys are one of the good ones. So anytime you guys have me on, I'm good. I'm happy with that.
Appreciate it.
We fooled another one.
So I am the host of the Movie Pit podcast, where I talk about movie news, all the big movie news that came out through the week, trailers, and then the movies that are coming out in theaters and now streaming. Right now, I say we because it's just really me, because I'm just so used to saying we now.
Yeah.
I'm doing a spooky season podcast for the first time. Nice. I did my first episode Friday the 13th. I have a episode of the Disney Channel original movie Don't Look Under the Bed, which I watched as a kid.
Oh, cool.
And I rewatched it again for the first time. Awesome. Surprising result. So I'll let you listen to that when you get to it. And then I think by the time this goes up, I will have a found footage episode up.
Oh, nice.
So, nice.
And then I'll, of course, be talking about Halloween on Halloween.
That's cool.
For that. And I future plans, but we'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Sweet. Okay. We're excited to hear about it. Yeah. That sounds like an awesome slate for your spooky season. I think that'll be cool. Disney's got a great Halloween selection on the Disney Plus app. Like, I was surprised just how many of the like nostalgic picks. We watched the one with the Donald Duck's nephews. Dewey, like, and they have like the witch, and like it's like it was just like this weird feeling of like, oh, I remember everything, but I couldn't have picked this movie out, this little short unless I saw this. But like once I saw, I was like, oh my God, like my life, it all came flashing in front of
just
me. So
buried in your brain back there somewhere.
I was like, oh, that's what this is. So
like a mummy.
Exactly. Key it up. Here we go.
I hate myself.
But yeah, stoked to have you here. We talked earlier, you're coming back. We got you already lined up again for our 2023 auction draft, which I think we are all very excited about. So very stoked.
Those things are always a blast.
They are intense, and I cannot wait. We are here. We're finally in season 3. I guess that's the other thing. I think you've showed up for every season so far. John Carter was season 1, Christmas season 2, and here we are. Wow. So we gotta we'll keep the trend going.
That's great. I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, this is amazing. I think we start our seasons like with the fiscal year, like they start in October. That's so it's just like
that's just the way it shakes out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we are kicking off season 3 with some all-time classics. We were talking about The Room. We were talking about The Wicker Man and The Mummy, but not the Brie Larson or Christopher Lee or Brendan Fraser classics. We are talking about these subpar classics with Tommy Wiseau, Nicolas Cage, and today's Tom Cruise disaster, which I just didn't think existed. I was really shocked by it. I think we've talked about this already, but I, was really on a Top Gun kick when we were making our picks. I was like, I want to do 3 rounds of Tom Cruise. And so I went with this one. So yeah, our theme this month is movies so bad they're scary. That was submitted from one of our patrons, Andrew Pedersen. he wanted us to cover these kind of movies, which I think was a great selection. So basically we just kind of made it, movies under 30% on Rotten Tomatoes that we haven't seen. So that's what we're doing right now. So The Room was last week, Wicker Man's next week, but today we are talking about the 2017 Alex Kurtzman film, The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise, Sofia Boutella, and my noted favorite actor of all time, Russell Crowe.
Does I was so happy Rushmore? I saw that.
Does this make your Rushmore Mountain?
Yeah. Like if you keep saying this stuff, you have to like now make us a Rushmore. You know what I mean? Like you have to make the Crushmore. That was I was gonna save it for later, but actually it would. I liked his Hyde. I liked 50% of his performance. I liked when he was Hyde. I was super into it. Like he was so campy. I was like, yeah, this is what I want. I want a Cockney accent, Russell Crowe. This is great. So
yeah.
I'm offering you a partnership. You, evil incarnate, me, your good friend Eddie Hyde. Think about it.
But yeah, I picked this because I feel like I had to see the movie that brought down a franchise before it even started. That like and never happens. Yeah, it's like it was like, nope, we're not going to do this. Like, oh wow, okay, this must be awful. I mean, there's so many franchises that just put anything out. So I was like, I need to see what wasn't good enough to continue on. So totally. We put out, our guest openings on our Instagram, and you're pretty quick, Christian, to be like, I have to talk about The Mummy. Like I need to like speak my piece about this. And I was so excited to hear you say that. So I want to turn the time over to you. What was your personal experience with The Mummy? Like your first reaction, all that kind of stuff. Tell us about your history with The Mummy.
So I was like you. I was super excited. I let my cautious optimism gate down for The Mummy when I first saw it, because I was excited for the Dark Universe as well. And because I was a fan of those old Universal monster movies, still am.
Yeah.
And I was totally down for the idea of a Dark Universe, even if it was set in modern times. I think that opened up the floodgates for a cool new storytelling perspective. Yeah. And instead, we got this. And
instead, here we are.
I was heavily disappointed the first time I watched it in theaters, and I was still I actually became angry with the movie now with this rewatch, because knowing what they took from us. So thanks for having me on for this.
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad to hear that. Like when I heard you were coming on, I thought you were coming on because you liked this movie.
Oh no.
So I was like,
no one comes on because they like this movie, Tyler.
Well, the thing was I hadn't seen it yet, right? I was like, maybe it's a misunderstood thing. Maybe it's like one of those things like a movie we just covered, The Room. Like
maybe he thought it was the Brendan
fun.
Fraser movie.
Sure, yeah. Like, and honestly, that actually did cross my mind. I'm like, what if he thinks it's the good one, right? Like, yeah. So I was a little bit nervous to have to like, I don't know. I just like you. I don't want to argue with you,
Yeah.
Echoing what you guys have all said, I remember when this started to become a thing. I don't know if it was like in production or whatever. Some other podcast was talking about it and about how they were trying to redo the whole Universal Monsters IP and all that stuff. And it sounded really fun, sounded really cool. And, looking at the people that they attached to this project, Ben's favorite and Russell Crowe. And, this was when my boy Nicky Miller was on the come up. And so, they're attaching like young talent. It did not help. But I don't know, man, you could see like, I think Matt, you put it in your Letterboxd review, just like, I just think there was just way too many cooks in the kitchen here. You know what I mean? I never felt like they could decide exactly what they wanted to do. I don't remember what movies it was where we talked about this idea where like the creatives can't seem to pick a lane, and whether it's from external pressures or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, is this thing supposed to be campy? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be scary? Is it supposed to be like a mystery? Like what is this thing? It was all those things, and none of those things very well. You know what I mean? So I literally just finished watching it a little bit ago, and I can't really remember much of it. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again. I will say it's a pretty good airplane movie because there's enough going on, and at least like it. I will say at least the pace was good. Like it was quick. I felt like we got in and out pretty quick. So You know, if you're stuck on an airplane and you need to kill an hour and a half, like you could probably do worse than The Mummy, but I guarantee you could do a lot better.
When you described this as an airplane movie, I was literally thinking of the airplane scenes. And I was like,
yeah,
is this a good airplane movie? But no, you're right. If you're on an airplane and you have nothing to do, why not? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's exactly where my girlfriend watched this. Apparently, it was on a plane. We were going somewhere.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that she had watched it. We were talking about it. She's like, yeah, I watched it when we were going somewhere. And yeah, I was very curious to, like, I don't know, hear her thoughts on it. And obviously you guys as well. Matt, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts, but I do think overall, I think I'm maybe more positive on this than anybody else here. Like, I didn't hate it, and I don't know if it's because I went in knowing it was rated 15%. You know what I mean? I was like, this isn't that bad. Like, it's not good. Don't get me wrong. This is not like a good movie, but I was like, this is like, in my opinion, closer to 50% than 15. Like, it's campy, it's cheesy, but like the set pieces are decent. Like, they've got some good stuff. I think there's definitely some flaws here. Like, Tom Cruise, he's just not a funny person. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, like,
completely miscast for the role that he was trying to play.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
he's playing a Chris Pratt role, basically.
100%. Yeah, I felt like they were trying to write him up almost like a Tony Stark quippy, but I think maybe Star-Lord is like even better. Like that kind of a, you know, we'll talk about one of the scenes I'm picking later on, which like leads into this exactly. And it's just like, he's just not for this role. Like they were, they gave him a lot of, I think, Jake Johnson's jokes, what should have been his jokes. You know, it's like, oh, I would have bought that from him.
Right.
Side note, Tyler, was it weird for you as it was for me that he kept calling Tom Cruise Nick the whole time?
It was freaking me out.
I
that
feel
was
like
weird.
this has got to be super hard for Tyler right now.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You know, it's funny. Like, I rated this thing at a 1.5 stars on Letterboxd.
Okay.
But I also did kind of like it. You know what I mean? I was like, I had fun. But when I went to rate it, I'm like, I can't justify like this. Like, it's just, I had fun, but it just wasn't any good. There was a lot of good stuff about it. I thought like a lot of it looked great. There's, you know, some of the CG was pretty fun and pretty cool. And like, there was cool. There's like, it was like, if you had all the ingredients together to make a nice dinner, but like you subbed mayo for Miracle Whip and you know what I mean? Just like, you just got some of the stuff wrong and it just ruined the whole piece. I don't know. It's just like, it just didn't sit well enough with me to do anything more than 1.5 stars, you know? So it's like, I hated it, but I like didn't hate it.
And I did not really, I mean, I have no like passion one way or the other for this, but like, I did not enjoy it.
I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
But to Ben's point, it's hard to rate something so low when like, I'm also giving The Room a super low score. It's like the quality of this movie and the quality of The Room in every aspect is like way different. And so it's unfair to be like, oh, this is 1 star and The Room is, you know, 0.5 star. It's like there's a much wider gap between how bad these two movies are. But that said, I knew, like, I love the idea of the dark universe. I was down when I had heard about it, but I knew within seconds of this movie starting that the vibe was off. Like, it starts off and just like the lighting and the tone and the desert. First of all, like, I'm in the desert. I'm like, this feels an awful lot like The Mummy, like the one that we already had.
Yeah.
And then like it kind of goes into the quips with with Nick Miller and Tom Cruise. And it's like, okay, we're getting some comedy. I'm getting some adventure vibes here. It's like, we already have a great movie like this.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it didn't deviate enough away from that. And once it tried to kind of go more horror, it didn't really establish any real stakes. I didn't really care about any of the characters. And really, like, there is like a certain recipe to horror. Apparently, I've only heard this. I have not written horror, so I'm not trying to be snooty at all. But apparently horror is a very easy genre to write because there's only a few key things that you have to do to like establish the audience to like care about things. And it's apparently it's a quick buildup. Yeah. And so I don't know what all those things are. So I'm not, someone can call me out on here and yell at me in the comments. But all I know is that whatever you need to do to set up a horror movie, this movie did not do that.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I mean, I would never profess myself a writer either, but I remember in college I had to write a script for my screenwriting class, and my opening scene, like I wrote it out as a whole horror scene, and then the reveal at the end is that it's like for a surprise birthday party. But that kind of is like the horror elements where it's like super dark and you're walking in, like you think people are there, and there's like all this kind of stuff. And I think in that sense, that's why horror is so popular, because I think there are just give me the basics, like get my tension rising, give me my blood flowing, whatever, give me some spooks and we're good to go. But it's like they didn't quite pull it off with this. I don't know. Like, I think Tom Cruise was really kind of miscast. I mean, what did you think, Christian? Like, was Tom Cruise the person for this role, or I mean, should they have gone another way?
No, he was not the person for this role. I agree. I think he was miscast. I didn't see it when I watched it the first time. I didn't think he was miscast.
Yeah,
just because I was just trying to, I was engulfed in the movie for the first time, and then when I watched it again today, I was like, he doesn't work. Like Nick Miller, the lead. If Nick Miller was the lead, then maybe then that would be good, because I liked his character more than I liked Tom Cruise's character
for sure.
But yeah, I like, and then I was just like thinking about, it's like, like if we did a recast on Mummy, like who would we recast as Tom Cruise? And I couldn't think of anybody other than Nick Miller, because he's already there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, they try to make him too quippy, and he wasn't really Tom Cruise. Like, when you see a Tom Cruise movie, you expect Tom Cruise acting like suave and charming and whatever, and you didn't really get that here. It was more like he was like force reading his lines.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think that definitely played a factor, because if you can't believe the lead and the person whose journey you're following, I think that definitely makes for a unwatchable, well, not totally unwatchable, but unwatchable, for lack of a better word, experience.
Hard to connect to him, for sure. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, as we were watching, I was talking, to my girlfriend. I was like, I feel like the editing's fast here, because I feel like the dialogue is going faster than it should. But in retrospect, I'm like, I think this just might be like Tom Cruise doing what he thinks is funny. Like, oh, I should say it this way or whatever. It's like, no, I just don't know that you have that in your bag. Like, you got a lot of stuff, but I don't know that you just have like comedian, which also though, like for me, I could have seen him in the Jekyll and Hyde role, because I'm thinking the Hyde evil one was like, it's like his Les Grossman role from Tropic Thunder, just not funny. Like, he can freak out and yell and scare you, and he can also be reserved. I'm like, I'd rather see that side of him than the someone who they're trying to make like the comic relief. I'm like, it wasn't working. And it also kind of made me laugh at the beginning that like they held off on revealing him for like 5 shots. It's like we see Nick Miller and then like another person on the horse. It's like, you guys, he's been the face of your like marketing the whole time. This is not the reveal you think it is. This is not. This isn't like Cap coming out from the shadows, at the train station. It's like, oh, look at that reveal. It's like, no, we know who this is. Like, it's the one person we're all here to see right now.
Take the napkin off, Tom.
Well, speaking of Cap, and not to take everything back to Marvel, but it kind of makes me feel like we were really lucky we never got the Tom Cruise Iron Man.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that until you guys were talking about, I think you compared him straight to RDJ, Ben. And it's like, I don't know if he couldn't have done it the same way that Robert Downey Jr. did it. I'm sure he could have done it just fine, played it differently.
He would have done, I think he would have been more of an Ethan Hunt, Tony Stark than
totally.
Because there's so much RDJ in that role,
Yeah,
well, and speaking of Ethan Hunt, the only thing I could think watching him, because there was something off about his performance. I couldn't really pinpoint it, and you guys have helped me sort of think that through, but for whatever reason his performance was off, and I was like, was this direction, was this whatever the reason? But then I was like, there's very few people that can do those action sequences as good as Tom Cruise, because everything else about the movie wasn't that great. Like, it wasn't that funny. I didn't care about any of the characters. The writing was pretty terrible. In my opinion. But when it comes time to kick ass, he kicks ass, and he really goes for it, and he really sells it. Like, it's like, that was the kind of like the redeeming quality. It's like, that's why I gave a half a star to the movie just for Tom Cruise, because like, he's just fun to watch do action stuff. And I can't help but think like he walked onto set, and as a man who just loves cinema and loves movies and filmmaking to its core, maybe he walked in and just saw the vibes were bad and no one cared or had the passion that he did.
Yeah.
So he sold it down the river and he half-assed it. Like, because like just with the whole Maverick thing and the attention to detail and like the love and respect to the genre that he paid for Maverick and all the effort they went to do it so well and so cool. And it really paid off. And you can tell it really mattered to him, right? Like all the PSAs he did and everything. So it's like, I wonder if there is something to that. Like he knows he's in a shithole movie. He can't help himself but to be kind of a badass when he's fighting. But
yeah, he's
just like not. I mean, I'm obviously wildly speculating, but it's just like maybe, man, maybe he knew it was going to be bad and just half-assed it.
I have no idea, but I think he's kind of a control freak, so I imagine he was maybe one of the chefs in the kitchen.
Yes,
yeah,
he was.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, I mean, yeah, sorry. You were totally right, though. Like he, in his contract, basically got final edit on the movie. He came on right after the director, Alex Kurtzman, who like has handled like the Star Trek reboot. And I think that's pretty successful. I like those movies. Yeah. So like, I don't think this falls on him. Like he knows how to make a movie and produce and stuff like that. But I guess Tom Cruise had final edit basically. And the things I was reading and watching were just saying like, oh yeah, like he in the edit bay, or even as they were writing, were like, let's do less Sophia and more me, stuff like that. Like they kind of seemed like Universal just wanted him there to help kick it off. And she was supposed to be the mummy, like for the franchise. But it's almost like the Drew Barrymore Scream thing. Like, let's get people in here with Tom Cruise, but he's not going to be in any of the other movies, but let's like get hit asses in seats basically. But throughout the filming and stuff, it switched. He's like, no, I'm going to do it. You know? So it's like, all right, so now you have to rewrite that.
Now I'm going to end the movie with superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm going to give him a super kiss and then I'm superpowers and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. It was, it's interesting. I think when people have the final say like that, like I'm sure he's done stuff like, you know, said Top Gun and the Mission Impossible where his input has been helpful, but maybe this was just kind of like out of his element for what they were trying to do. I don't know. Exactly.
He's like, we need to do a reshoot. I need some of Nick Miller's lines because my character's not funny enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't know how to deliver. I'm like, don't worry, I know how to do it.
Let's do the 15 seconds thing with me instead of
let me do that.
What should we do with Jake Johnson? I don't know. Make him a fucking zombie or who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Just give me his lines.
Who's Jake Johnson?
Avoid him of all his personality he had at the beginning of the movie and just
exactly.
Make him a zombie.
And like let's remove him for 40 minutes right in the middle, and then he'll just like show up on the street and later. Like, okay, cool.
He'll be like Patrick Swayze on Ghost.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, so I mean, Tyler, you brought something up, and I was kind of thinking moving on to our next category here. This is almost like what isn't in the stew, you know, but I think you brought up a good point where like it called for whatever, you know, mustard and they put in mayonnaise kind of thing. It's like I think they kind of screwed this up. Like they were trying to make a dark DC Universal Monsters thing, but it's like, but let's have MCU jokes in it. It's like, that doesn't really go together. You can't mix cuisines here, you know. And then we thought about kind of the reverse elevator pitch, but I have a question for you guys. This may all come out of the pod. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I just need to do it for my own sake. And you know, as the editor, I'm going to do it.
Ready.
Are you guys familiar with the Christopher Guest movie, A Mighty Wind?
Yes, sir.
So there is a line reading in that movie, and that's all I could think about while watching this. And it's Fred Willard, and he was in a TV show in the movies in a TV show called Wha Happened. And that's kind of exactly what I feel like this is. So I'm going to play that for us right now, and we will get into that segment.
Let's start right out. Hey, what happened? As you know, back in 1970, I started on a series called What Happened? And every time something would go wrong, I would look at the camera and say, hey, what happened?
All right. Anyways, I just needed to show that because that line reading plays in my head so often. It's like, what happened? And so, yeah, I think that's what I want to call this category, the what happened. Basically, I want us to each pick a scene in here to kind of just like the what happened. Like, what would you show someone to be like, I don't know if you should watch this. Like, again, like I feel like I'm highest on this out of everybody here, but I don't know that in good conscience I could tell anybody like, yeah, you should definitely check this out. Like, if you're curious about it, tear it up, but go watch the Brendan Fraser one if you want to watch a mummy movie. So, Christian, I want to kick it off to you. What scene would you be picking for your What Happened award?
I mean, I'm with you. I probably wouldn't tell anybody to watch this movie. But man, what I've been thinking about it, and I don't know.
That's all good, man. Know. Yeah.
What I would pick. I mean, I don't want to bash the movie too much because that's not who I am. I did like the attack in London scene when she attacks. I thought that was actually a good scene. I thought that was the Tom Cruise of the movie. That was the Tom Cruise-ness of the movie when he's running around London. I was like, okay, that's what I want. Why can't you make the whole movie like that? But
just let Tom Cruise run.
Yeah, just let him run.
Just have him running. That's it. That's all you need to do. Just have him running and not hurt himself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
No, I mean, honestly, it's like it's a weird category because it's like you're trying to pick something that goes against what I think all of us normally do is try to tell people to watch movies.
Yeah.
For me, I'll throw mine out there. Mine, I kind of talked about it. Like I think they were throwing Tom Cruise jokes that just didn't work. And there's one early on during the attack where Jake Johnson's yelling, like, what are you thinking? Like, he's like, I got a plan. He's like, what are you thinking? And they just have this back and forth like 5 times. And then Tom Cruise was like, I'm thinking we're going to die up here. But the delivery is horrible.
So
it's just like,
bad.
What are you thinking? I'm thinking we're probably going to die here. I knew it.
Oh, okay. Like I think we all saw this coming like from a mile away, but the delivery still just somehow landed flat, even though we were all ready for this joke to land. And yeah, I think I would just like show that, like, I don't know, this is unfortunately what you're getting when it comes to Tom Cruise being funny. So this, like, if you are hoping he's going to be funny, this is not that movie. But yeah, if you want to watch him like run and watch stuff blow up, like, yeah, this is totally that. He's in his bag when it comes to the action stuff, but unfortunately the acting stuff does not quite work as well. So what about you, Tyler?
Well, mine picks up literally right after that, because even up until that point, I was kind of in. Like, I was like, all right. I was kind of, I think, where you ended, Ben. I'm like,
yeah,
hey, man, I've got like Tom Cruise isn't funny, but like Jake Johnson's funny, and I like a fun action buddy movie. Like, this will be cool, Mm-hmm. So I was kind of in, and so I would pick it up right after that, some point after the I think we're gonna die moment, and I would show up into the point where they finally drop into the crater to go search the tomb or whatever, because that was the literal moment when I checked out. Like,
yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. They're going to go down there. And then the next shot cuts to like freaking the Staples Center underground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With this like 1,000-foot drop, and like the hole that they came in is like the size of a football field, it looks like.
Yeah.
So when you see it from when you see it from the top, it's like just this tiny little, it looks filled in. It's barely open enough to show you the like the face in there, the statue.
And then
you
becomes
drop
Cowboy
in,
Stadium, and it's like,
yeah, totally. I'm like, wait, what just happened? I literally had to rewind it. I'm like, did I miss something? Like, are they in a different place? Like, there's like, I know, like, at a certain point you have to suspend your disbelief for any movie, right? But like, that was such a shocking, like a shocking scene change that it completely took me out. And I don't know if, other people would pick up on that the same way I would, because I was looking for things to be bad.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I was really ready to like, oh, they did that wrong and they did that wrong. Right. So I don't know if it matters outside of that context, but for me, that's when my interest cratered.
And it's such like a hard cut, because right before that, in between our two scenes, is like this like sexual banter when we get like the female, that comes in and like, oh, he slept with her and whatever. But the whole time it's like, no, like nobody's sleeping with this guy. Like there's no way. He's just not, he doesn't have that kind of charisma or whatever. He doesn't put off that kind of stuff. And, it's just this weird back and forth. And then, smash cut, we're going down into the crater. Like, oh, all right, cool. Here we are.
And I think it's like indicative of a lot of things like that throughout the movie. I can't think of too many. I remember there was one scene where they're running through that like
like the library
room.
Yeah, with all
and
the
like
glass.
Everything's blowing up. But like there's explosions happening right next to them, but there's not, their hair doesn't move. Like their shirt doesn't move. They don't get like hit with the blast that's, you know what I mean? It was like, and like that shit's hard to do. I can't do that. I couldn't make the scene look real, but I know that there's people that can, and I know they work in Hollywood, and pretty sure this movie was made in Hollywood. So I'm just like, there's just so many moments like that where it's just like, it's hard for me to stay bought in, despite like, that was a cool scene. Like you said, Christian, that whole London attack was like, this should have been great, and it could have been, and it was fun, but there was just little moments that just kept taking me out.
That makes sense. Yeah, I get that. How about you, Matt?
Mine would have to be like, if you were to watch this out of context and see the scene where Tom Cruise had just stabbed himself with the dagger, got the power of Set, and then he attacks the mummy. And so starting there, you're seeing Tom Cruise fight this mummified woman, then slamming her down on the table, then climbing on top of her and kissing her, but like sucking the life force out of her. But the viewer doesn't really know that. So it just looks like he's just making out with this chick. And then she just like shrivels into a ball.
Yeah.
And then afterwards he stumbles over to his girlfriend and just like leans over her body, just like panting, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, is he gonna throw up on her? Like, what's gonna happen here?
And then he like yells at her and he gets like Bat Boy.
Yeah.
Like that.
And that's where I'd cut. It's like, what the freak just happened here?
Yeah, what is going on right now?
What happened?
What happened?
What happened?
Hey, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were, like we talked about, like he does have some action scenes. Like I kind of liked him like fighting the zombies. Like I thought it was innovative to have him like be able to punch through their heads,
totally.
like that kind of thing. Like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, these people would all be super frail and whatever. So some
but they
of
know
it
English
works,
somehow.
Yeah, it's just like what happens.
They're frail, but they
they know what to do.
They're caught up on a language that was invented after a millennium after it died.
a lot of time to read, when you're just mummified.
I guess that's true.
But, so yeah, I don't know that any of us would recommend this movie, but I'm curious. I mean, Christian, you kind of alluded to it already that you were excited about the Dark Universe, which I think maybe all of us were overall. Like, I sent that picture to our group chat to Matt and Tyler, and it's just like they have these promo photos done with like, Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem and Russell Crowe, and I guess there were talks that like Angelina Jolie was going to be in the next movie with Javier Bardem as like the Bride of Frankenstein. Like that was going to be movie number 2, which was like, if you guys have that lined up and there's like a chance that Depp cameos or whatever. And I understand Depp is like controversial. I totally get that. But unfortunately, he's still a box office draw for a lot of people. So it's like, if you have all this stuff lined up like this, I don't know. I'm curious why they didn't continue with it. And if you guys think that they should have, like when it said it was a bomb, this thing made $410 million on a $125 million budget. Like I thought it didn't get its money back or something, like for them to pull the plug on it. But I think it was mainly the critical response and maybe not making $1 billion. Cause I feel like just like DC, they wanted everything to be Avengers the first time out. It's like, that's not how the MCU did it. No one's going to be able to do that again, you guys. Like stop trying to make it happen. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of want to talk about that. Like, would you guys have been interested in the Dark Universe continuing? Maybe any thoughts like where should they have gone next and all that kind of stuff. So Christian, I want to toss it to you.
Yeah. I mean, despite how I felt about the Mummy, I mean, they had the cast lined up. I was looking forward to Angelina Jolie as the Bride of Frankenstein. I thought that was a pretty good casting choice.
That sounds red.
Yeah. And I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with Javier Bardem. Like, I think it was unclear if he was playing the monster or if he was actually playing the doctor. Like, there was always confusion around that. I assumed he was playing the monster. I mean, nothing against Javier Bardem. He's, decently good looking man, but you're going to, pick someone to play the monster, I guess he would be the pick.
I'd pick Anton
Yeah.
Chigurh 9 times out of 9.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know why I did a 9-point scale there, but
9 out of 9 times.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I would have gone and continued to see it because maybe they would have course corrected. You know, they would have seen and heard the reaction of what the Mummy did and been like, okay, now we know what works. Now we know what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let's course correct and try to, put the train back on the tracks for I lost my train of thought there. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the only ones. So did an entire movie studio.
But I mean, I would have been excited for it. I would have kept going because, I love movies and I love these characters. I love these monsters,
Mhm.
and I would have kept going to see them even if they were bad.
And it's like, I get that, studios want to go with the IP and put that out because people are familiar with it, but this doesn't feel like the thing you need to do. Like The Mummy is just so like, it's a cult classic now. The Brendan Fraser one, like it's a classic. People love it. And it's like, was that the right move to kick it off with this? Like, hey guys, we're going to remake The Mummy. And I'm aware of the argument that that movie still exists and everything. It's like people that got up in arms about the Ghostbusters remake. Like the other movie still exists, but it's just like, maybe The Mummy shouldn't have been the first thing you did. Like maybe when's the last time we got a great Frankenstein movie or, great, we've had Dracula and stuff, but like, yeah, give us Wolfman or something like that. So I'm curious if leading off with The Mummy was part of the issue as well, but.
Or I mean, if they're to like do Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
yeah,
with, Russell Crowe, like start off with that like corporation or whatever, secret society or whatever it was. They never really made it clear what they were. But start off with them and then start off with like a small character like him and maybe, because, there's that shot of all like the certain like callbacks to like the old monsters, like the Gilman's hand and the Dracula head or vampire head. So, I mean, like they could have started off there and then like made like little jumps here and there and be like, I don't want to, you compared it earlier with the DC universe, like do what they did with, another bad movie in Batman v Superman where, he opens up a folder and it's like sightings of all these like random creatures. And you could have just taken it from there. You're right. I don't think it was right starting off with The Mummy because people had the connection with the Brendan Fraser one, better one. I mean, you could have started off with that. You could have started off with the Wolfman or the Invisible Man or even Bride of Frankenstein or Frankenstein. Like, I think starting off with The Mummy was a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. That scene reminded me, I think your Justice League, like that call was good. It also reminded me of the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 when he goes down to his basement and there's like, the Doc Ock arms. Like we see the Sinister Six, like the equipment for all of them. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like we know where you're headed now. And we kind of had that with this. Or eventually not headed, unfortunately. I still want my Paul Giamatti Rhino. I still really want to see that on the big screen again. I loved that. I love that so much. But it could have been the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, they didn't do it in this context, but there was that Invisible Man movie they did with Elizabeth Moss, and that's a great movie. I think I love that movie. I think it's a really well done horror movie, and it's like I think that's there. Like people like horror, people want this stuff. I think maybe they just fumbled it a little bit, but.
I've never seen The Invisible Man because I'm a scaredy cat, but I correct me if I'm wrong, but that movie seems like the scope of the movie is limited to like a smaller scale, like one person's life in one little town, right? Like, am I wrong there?
No, it's essentially it. Yeah.
Because
for that movie,
I feel like that's what, like, I don't understand, like picking the Mummy as character or as an idea isn't necessarily a bad idea, but I just don't see why they had to, like, why did it have to be a remake? The Mummy can be any mummy in any story with any lore you want, right? Like, so I don't know why that just doesn't make sense to me. It feels like these characters are more fun on a smaller scale. Like we don't need them to be, it doesn't have to be a Thanos thing or like a Marvel big bad thing. Like, I don't know why it couldn't be like Christian. You said Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That could easily be a story about a character in a small town in any time period. You know what I mean? Like, I just I can see the temptation to make it huge and and Marvel like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like it just seems so odd to me that I don't know. It just seems like if to answer your question, I think they should continue with this because I still think it's really cool. Just hearing about Angelina Jolie and Javier Bardem and all those people makes me excited. I'm like, damn, I actually want to see that. But I just like, let's just bring the scale down. Like, we don't have to have 15 villains in every movie. Like, it can still be fun and still be small, right? Like,
yeah, Iron Man.
And I think the Invisible
like,
Man's a perfect example of that. Or Iron Man. Sure.
Well, I mean, just on the lines of Invisible Man, like Iron Man was just like him fighting a bigger Iron Man. Like that was it. It was just the dude in a bigger suit, you know?
Yeah.
Very small scale. And that's what, you know, Invisible Man was kind of that same thing where it's like it's small scale. If you are trying to replicate the MCU, like there's a reason that stuff worked because we started small. We're not starting with a mummy who's trying to take over the entire world. It's like, well, okay, so where are we going from here then? You know, like what's next here? You know, if it's worldwide doom or something. So I think it's a good call. I think maybe just could have gone a different way. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I like the mashup idea. I mean, I think all these are supposed to be able to stand alone as like their own, you know, horror movie. But I don't know if you guys have seen the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's kind of one where they kind of overlap some of these classic literary horror characters, and I feel like they did a pretty good job.
You want to talk about bad movies? There you go.
Sorry, man. You think they did a good job with that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it's based on a graphic novel, but it's just kind of I'm not sure. It seems like it is a team up movie, but that's kind of where you see kind of the mashups, and I think those things are kind of fun. I think that movie was not very well done, but I can see where this dark universe thing was going, and that's honestly kind of what I was hoping for. Honestly, like I feel like they were fine starting with The Mummy, but I feel like they didn't distance themselves enough from it feeling like a remake of the one that we already loved.
Yeah.
I feel like they very easily could have, if the scope of this dark universe was maybe a little more, I'm sure it was ironed out. In fact, I'm going to take a sidebar and say that the last decade of movies has proven that studios have had a very hard time replicating Kevin Feige.
Yeah, for sure.
They can't do it. And no one has really risen up to be able to have like a cohesive universe built around one singular vision the way that Kevin Feige did. And I know all the Zack Snyder nuts are going to argue that he did it. And I'll just objectively say that you're wrong. Like it's the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Send your email to matt.weiler at 3filmspod.com.
That's right. Matt.snydercut.weiler at no, but it's a difficult thing to do. But the thing is, like, these, Ben, you mentioned this, like this is classic IP. Like you should be able to take any of these titles and run with them alone, like even without star power. Like you don't even need Tom Cruise to make a compelling universal monster movie. And so I feel like with that IP comes a significant amount of equity that you really have to leverage. And if you're not leveraging it, I feel like it's just going to fail. And I feel like this movie did not leverage any of the equity from any classic Universal movie. And I also kind of felt that way about Invisible Man. I enjoyed Invisible Man, but I couldn't envision that as part of like a bigger thing, the way that movie was made. But I feel like an Invisible Man story could be, just that one wasn't. And I enjoyed that one a whole lot more than I did than this one. But I would love to see the Dark Universe, and I think they should still do it. I don't know if they need to change the name and take another shot at it, or they could do what DC did with Suicide Squad. You know, like they made the first Suicide Squad movie. They're like, okay, actually this sucked.
Yeah.
Let's do another The Suicide Squad movie and course correct a little bit, and then, you know, continue on. Like I feel like they could do that. And if it's a good movie, if the sequel's better, people aren't going to care.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's like, the four of us here are reasonably intelligent people. Like, can you
speak for yourself?
I just don't know how anyone thinks like it's a good idea to just straight up remake a movie that came out 15 years ago. You know, and one that was like that. It's not like The Mummy was like wasn't like they were stealing from some foreign filmmaker like they did with Akira Kurosawa. You know what I mean? It's not like
exactly.
It's not like it wasn't something that no one else knew about. And like think of if Nolan had just redone Burton's Batman, like that would be bananas. It'd be insane. Like, why would you do that? So why would I don't see why that same thought process wouldn't apply to this exercise, right? Like, it just boggles. I mean, it boggles my mind. I mean, I guess the Brendan Fraser mummy worked, and they just want money and they want create an IP and create a franchise. So
yeah,
sure, I guess repackage that, but it's just like, what are you? Why? What are you doing?
Well, you're trying to. The thing that the Brendan Fraser trilogy didn't try to do was try to build like this horror universe, right?
Yeah.
With classic horror monsters. Like, yes, it's kind of going off of The Mummy, but this was supposed to launch off like this horror universe, and they still went their Brendan Fraser route, sort of, and that just felt off. Like, this is supposed to be the dark universe. I mean, we have Jake Johnson and Tom Cruise just joking in the desert, in the bright, like sun-shining desert. It's like, this doesn't feel moody or dark at all.
Yeah, 100%. If you're gonna do a good cover song, you've got to kind of make it your own, and it doesn't feel like they did that enough. You know, it's like, well, just go watch or go listen to the original. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say none of this would be this wouldn't fall in any of our favorite monster movies, Rushmore. But I am curious to head over to our Rushmore Mountain to pick one of our favorite monster movies. That's what we're going to do this time.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
We've kind of revised the Rushmore, towards the end of season 2. And I think moving forward, where we are each just going to pick one, so we compile, a 4-movie Rushmore. We used to all pick 4, and it was a lot of fun. There's just a lot of chaos, and I like how much more important each pick is now. I think when you only get one instead of 4, I think it makes me consider it a lot differently than we did before, and I'm really enjoying that. So we are going to go to our Rushmore. We're going to do monster movies. Christian, are you ready to go with your pick?
I think I am.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go. I want to try to keep it, synchronized with the episode a little bit. I'm gonna go with Frankenstein.
Cool.
Because I always liked Frankenstein. I always thought he was a tragic character, and like throughout the year, like we talked about a little bit about how there's not really any good Frankenstein remakes or stories, or they try to do some like every year or not every year, but regularly, and they always fail because I think most of them always forget what makes the character so interesting is that he's a tragic character. He's not a character that you can easily root for, but he's also a character you feel very sympathetic for, and then everyone is just against him because all they see is a monster.
Yeah,
even though he's much, much more. And that's just the movie version of him. Obviously, the book version of him is, very different. And the closest we get to that book version is Penny Dreadful. I don't know if anybody watched that. But that was if you want, that's kind of another team up. We were talking about team ups earlier with Lee and Gentlemen. Penny Dreadful is definitely one of those. If anything, watch it for Eva Green because she's in there. And she has a really awesome scene. Like, I think episode 3, where she just kills it. But I'm gonna go with Frankenstein.
Nice. I like that. Oh, Rory Kinnear's in it. That's cool.
Yeah, he plays the Frankenstein.
All right, sweet. Yeah, he was. My thoughts on Men aside, he was great in it. I think having to do all those performances, that's awesome. But cool. Yeah, I think Frankenstein classic Boris Karloff. That's just gotta be one of the number 1 movies, monster movies ever. So, Matt.
So I talked about. That Universal should still go for this dark universe. And I think someone who could really pull it off is Guillermo del Toro. And I feel like he showed his chops with the Hellboy movies, specifically Hellboy 2. That's my pick. The Golden Army.
Nice.
Because he's already working with a monster universe in that material there. And so I would love to see what he does as a producer and director with monster movies. And so I would, that would be, he would be my dream pick to sort of head that. So Hellboy would be my pick. Honorable mention, Godzilla 1999.
Love it. Shout out Broderick. I love it. I still have not seen that. I think maybe I need to correct that at some point. But Tyler.
Yeah, I agree 100% about Guillermo del Toro. I can't talk.
GDT.
Whatever that guy's name is. Yeah. I agree 100%. And in fact, I almost picked one of his movies to make my list. I won't say it in case Ben was going to pick it.
Just throw it out there.
And, I was going to say Pan's Labyrinth. But if I'm being true to myself, I have to pick the movie that I always try to do this. Like, what movie would I watch first out of the ones I can think of? And if I'm being honest with myself, I think I'd pick Monsters, Inc. Cool. I think it's sort of a twist on, I think, what the category is, right? But they are monsters. And I just love that movie so much. I watched that. I rewatched that like more than I think I realized. Well, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, honorable mention for me would be Young Frankenstein. But even stay tuned. Where that might come up later in this season or in this round. But yeah, I got to go Monsters, Inc. Man, how can you not? Like, I love the twist on why they're scaring these kids. I think it's cool. Yeah, just everything about it.
That's a great choice. I was really kind of torn between two. Recently, one of my favorite Halloween movies I've discovered that everyone else has known about forever is The Thing. I think that's just such a good movie. It is awesome. Like, it is freaky. It is just, I don't know. I think it's perfect. I think it's wonderful. And I kind of wanted to go that route with the Halloween theme. But again, speaking of what Tyler said, if I'm true to myself and I'm picking one and taking one, I'm taking Jaws. I think that's a great monster movie. I don't know that it gets thinked about in that like typical sense of what a monster movie is, but I mean, it when you think about it though, and it really is, it's this thing that's like haunting everyone and, causing all this panic and stuff. And to me, it's just one of the best movies of all time. So, and I think it kind of like, rounds out our Rushmore nicely with Frankenstein, Hellboy 2, Monsters, Inc. and Jaws. The only other one I wanted to shout out as an honorable mention, I actually really enjoyed Peter Jackson's King Kong. I think that movie was a lot of fun with Jack Black and stuff. I had a good time with that one. So, that's the other one I want to mention.
Does District 9 count as a monster movie?
I mean, I guess so. Is it like an invasion movie? I don't know.
Aren't they aliens? I mean,
that's right. I was like, they're aliens. But
are we counting aliens as monsters?
Tyler, we're going to say no on that. We're just going to say straight up no.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. I need some clarity in my life, so I really like that.
All right, sweet. So yeah, do we have anything else we want to say about The Mummy from 2017 that we haven't already covered?
Glad we got it out of the way.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah. I can't believe that in the trivia they did 64 takes of that airplane scene, like the zero G thing. That's insane.
I did want to like this. I wanted this to be one of those things where it's like, you know what, the audience was too hard on this.
Yeah, totally.
That's probably where you're at, Ben. But
that's how I feel. Yeah,
I wanted to be that way.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'll revisit it, but I didn't. It was more than 15% to me. But
I will say, I didn't hate. I wasn't like mad that I was watching it the whole time. Yeah. I was just like, yeah, this is bad, but I'm having fun. But it's really bad.
It's no Larry Crown, Like
it's true.
They can't all be Larry Crown.
Tom Hanks was on a different podcast. It doesn't need me to.
Not ours. Tom,
I know.
Listening.
I know. Come on, Tom.
Please.
But he talked a little bit about his experience with Larry Crown and like how sad he was that people didn't go see it. He was kind of talking about it in like a joking way, like he was like laughing at himself, he was like laughing at his failure. But I just was like, sorry, Tom.
It, right?
Yeah.
Was that his follow up to
The Thing You Do?
The Thing You Do.
Yeah.
It's
two only.
Yeah, I mean, talk about movies with great cast that just didn't work. You had Julia Roberts, Tom Hanks. I mean, come on, it didn't work out. And here we are with The Mummy. Sorry, Russell. Oh, you made my Rushmore though. Dr. Hyde or Mr. Hyde, whatever.
Congrats.
I loved it. Christian, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation. I'm glad you came on to, share your thoughts on The Mummy. let people know where they can find you. Let them know.
Yeah, so the podcast is up on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and Spotify. Anyone listening wants anywhere else to put it, please let me know, and I will do my best to do that.
Nice.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Pit Podcast. I don't post too much on Instagram. I'm trying to fix that. It's much easier just post on Twitter and say random thoughts. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best with the Instagram account. But yeah, you can find me on those locations. I'm pretty active on the Twitter page. So keep you guys up to date on everything going on with the podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the updates, kind of the stuff I missed out on throughout the week and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely give Christian a follow. Thank you again for coming on. You can also find us on YouTube. Just put in 3 Films Pod. Obviously, if you're listening to us now somewhere, you can keep finding us here, wherever you're listening to this. But all the socials everywhere at 3 Films Pod. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you guys next week for a Nicolas Cage classic. See ya.
See ya.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit. You're gonna need a bigger boat.